The hell? You're not like the other ones. Man, what a nightmare. Just like this build. So when I'm looking for something I want to make, I usually have a few things that I'm looking for. First and foremost, has it been done? But more importantly, has it been done good? And in the case of Robbie, not really. So from what little I've seen people actually make Robbie costumes in the past, it tends to fall into one of two categories. Either they tried, but their proportions were way off, or they didn't try at all, and it's usually just a cosplayer putting on a mask and showing a lot of skin just to get those thirsty clicks. And you know what? Robbie deserves better. So that's what we're doing. I had about a month and a half to build this thing, and my main goal was to get it as accurate as possible to the Silent Hill 3 version of Robbie the Rabbit. So let's get building. I started by searching for a 3D model of Robbie from the game. If I remember right, this specific model of Robbie is actually from the Silent Hill arcade game, but that's okay because this model is basically ripped from Silent Hill 3, so dimensionally, it's still correct. With my model acquired, I needed to figure out its scale. Normally, I just do this in Pepakura while making my template, but because of Robbie's oversized head and ears, I had to figure out where I would fit inside this mascot suit first. I did this by creating a basic human outline and putting it over Robbie's body. Only his head is oversized, so as long as I matched up the body, I'd have a good idea where my head would fit inside this. It also gave me an idea of how much visibility I'd have too. Thankfully, the mouth will be right in front of my face, so that's how I'll see. And with this figured out, I can now get an idea of how tall Robbie is. To make this easy on myself, I measured out every 100 pixels. I'm 6 feet tall, so that means my body will be 600 pixels. If I scale these two images together, for the body to be 600 pixels tall, then I get a figure for exactly how tall Robbie's 3D model will be. And that height? 8.5 feet. That's almost 3.5 feet for the head and ears alone. And with these numbers, I'll be able to easily scale the model to true size. All I had to do was just punch in the new height for the model, and the width and depth would automatically adjust to match. With the model scaled, came time to rip the model apart. I started with the head first. I only focused on one half of the head because the template could be inverted for the other half. The ears, however, were a different story. The left ear is slightly droopy, so I made sure to outline both the ears and make them separately. Once I had the head, I then outlined the hands. I chose to make a template for this because of their odd shape. They're large, and the 4 fingers are all closed. I figured at the very least, this could help me make a sewing pattern later on. I did the same with the body. I wasn't sure how much of this I was going to need, so I figured I'd make as much as I could out to the openings for the arms, head, and legs. And then lastly, I covered the feet, the tail, and the bow tie. The red lines I'm tracing are used to guide the program on how I want those specific pieces to be split. Anywhere you don't outline, it will just take a wild guess for itself. So I only outlined the pieces that I needed. And with all that outlined, I unfolded the model. And with everything laid out, I started grabbing the pieces that I didn't need, being the ones that I didn't trace out, and threw them up in the top left corner. As I mentioned before in an older video covering Pepakura, This program will only lay out new print pages to the right and below of the initial first page, so the top left is a great place to throw all your unnecessary pieces. Sifting through all the good and bad pieces was tedious enough, but once I only had the good pieces left, I also had to organize them by group. I then put each body part into its own file so that I can print each body part separately. Link to these Pepakura files are in the description. And with all that done, time to print. All 70 pages. Just for the head, half of the head. Holy crap. And so began the long, tedious process of transferring the salt to foam. These templates spread across multiple pages of paper, which I had taped together and cut out. I approached this foam process very lazily. I didn't worry too much about having any clean seams, like I normally do when I'm making armor for any of my other builds. This is mainly because all this is going to get wrapped in fabric in the end, and you won't see any of these seams anyway. Hopefully. I started with the ears first, just because they were small and easier to put together, just so I could get an idea of how big this helmet would truly be in the end. And then came the rest of the head. This was a ton of long strips, all just to make up the top half of the head. I want to say I used 5mm foam for this. Originally I was going to use 3mm for the reduced weight, but I knew that 5mm would just hold the shape a lot better. With the top half done, I attached it to the ears and gave it a quick test fit. Holy crap. This might be bigger than what I was expecting. Well, technically, not really. Oh geez. As you can see, top of the head is right at the bottom of the eye line. That is exactly what we have made so far. We have in this green line here, up, basically made, and then a small portion in the back of the head. So that's actually kind of right. It looks wrong, which is why I'm saying I'm going to trust the process and just cross my fingers and hope it looks okay by the time I'm done. Man, I hope this turns out good. This will be kind of sick if it does. I don't know. All right, back to work, I guess. After that was the bottom half of the head. This was a little more difficult. The pieces were a little more complex in shape because of the bends around the cheeks and the mouth. I started from the back and worked my way around front, where the bends got more and more complex. This did require a ton of referencing my Pepakura file while working to know which way the seams was bending, so I knew which angle cuts to use. And with the mouth all glued up, I pressed it in place and gave it another test fit. Yeah, it is so big. Oh my god, whoops, I caught a spider web in the ceiling. Oh no. Okay, back to work. And from there, I only had a few things left to add for the time being. I started by finishing the bottom. In the Pepakura file, this was a fully enclosed piece, but I want to be able to put this thing on my head, so I was going to need a hole. So I modified the base template for just that. And once that was glued in, I needed to make the nose. This was probably the most complex shape so far and required a ton of pieces and a ton of angle cuts so you get it to wrap back onto itself into a ball. While it is attached to the face for now, I will be removing it later once I hit the fabric stage. And with that all done, only thing left were the teeth. I used a single piece of 10mm foam for this, cut it to shape, and glued it in place. It's done. Well, as done as it can be. Okay, so yeah, this thing is big, but as you just saw, it's actually proportionate to the actual in-game character. Or is Robbie Rabbit really a character? I mean, he just lays around everywhere dead. I think my current plan, I'll call it a day on the head, and then I'm going to move on to the rest of the body pieces and then try them all together. Do that. If the proportions look good, then we're good to go. Right now, this looks good, even though it looks really big on me. In comparison to the actual in-game character, the head is supposed to be that big. So it is actually proportionately correct, as big as this looks. All right, back to work. And up next was the body. I believe I opted for 3mm foam here for a few reasons. First and foremost, the thinner the foam, the more it's able to bend and warp. And for the body, I was going to really need that for any kind of movement I might do, like bending forward. But also, because this is going to require a ton of foam, and by that, I mean several rolls of foam. And 3mm foam is just the cheapest. Also, there will be a zipper to get in and out of the suit, so if I use 3mm foam, I can quite literally sew the zipper to the foam. Speaking of which, I left the back portion of the body open for this very reason. Time for a test fit. Okay, so definitely still winging this. Put the head in the back here for now because we don't need that at the moment. Next problem is going to be actually being able to put this thing on, the giant potato body. In game, this section here is a giant zipper. Zipper's always back up here, zipped up and yada yada. That's awesome and all, but there is no way in hell I am fitting in this. Instead of stopping to record again, I'm just gonna cut this right now. This will be fun. Oh, it's a potato. It's a potato. I'm a potato. I'm a potato. I'm a potato. Yeah, so this is about exactly what I was expecting. His knees, or the knees of the actor inside of the mascot, really does go down to the very bottom of this. Okay, now as far as the back, seems to be closing up fine. Even to here, so that's all good. I am sure my audio quality is absolutely atrocious right now, so I am trying to keep my microphone up and over. Someday I will have a house where I can actually put shit on without having to be on my knees. Alright, so I am 100% sure the camera didn't pick up anything, but my mirror right in front of me shows the proportions are actually pretty good. As to be expected, it's all proportionate in the model. Getting this off will definitely require help. Not now, but when it's done. Because when this thing is done, it's going to have sleeves. So there's going to be a few things I'm going to have to change on this, just for the sake of me not dying. Number one is that on this body, the sleeves are attached the whole way to the hand. So it's one giant suit that you cannot get out of. I'm not doing that. What I will do is I'll have the sleeves here, which will probably still be a bad idea, because getting out of this will not be fun. But I'll make sure that I actually have cuffs, and then the hands will just be mittens, and then I'll be able to take them off, and it'll make it easier to get everything off after that.
I'm sorry if I sound winded. I am fat, but it's not because of that. I am sick. So everything is taking a toll on me right now. But this is looking good. It's got me what I want. I still have the feet and the hands to make. But yeah, progress. This was like a night. Technically a night and a half, but... Alright, back to work.
And the process begins again for the hands. These are also insanely difficult to figure out. Fortunately, I had my Pepakura file open on my computer for reference again, for my angle cuts and placement of each piece. Later on, I'll be using this thing as a base for a duct tape template to make my sewing pattern, which will be slightly less complicated. Up next were the feet. These are the least pretty of all the pieces because of how squared they are. This game model is from 2003 after all. The base of the foot being flat is fine because my shoe will be inside this when it's done. But the sides are really only 2 layers, making the feet very polygonal.
One thing I was completely worried about was if these weren't actually even going to fit my feet. But they do. My feet actually stop before the toes even start, which is good because I'm a size 14. So anyway, feet are now done. Or at least done enough now that I can get a pattern out of them. Well, actually no, not technically, not really. There's still a trim I gotta do around it, I guess, I forgot. And the hands are done too. These are a lot bigger than I was expecting. But again, everything is to scale, so that's what we're doing. I just gotta now finish up the angle piece on this, and these will be good. Still a little boxy, so I think what I might do before I do any kind of patterning is that anything that is still kind of polygonal in shape, being, you know, very blocky and stuff, because this model is from a 2003 game. I'm going to use this stuff and kind of just fill in those gaps, round things off. That will be the next step, I think, what I'll do. And then after that, then I'll start working on all the patterns and stuff to try and get all the fur and stuff wrapped around this. And so I cut out the rest of the pieces for my template, transferred that to foam, and finished the ankles. Feet complete. Up next, I went back to the head to start working on some more details. Because the eyes and eyebrows aren't a part of the 3D model, I had to use a bunch of references and just use some of my artistic skills to figure out what felt right. I drew out the eyebrows, eyes, and the outline for the white fur around the cheeks, just to make sure it all looked right proportionally in comparison with each other. It's always easier to draw another circle than to cut one out. As they say, measure twice, cut once. Or draw twice, cut once. Now, there's a few things I would like to say about this. One, yeah, I would absolutely love for this to remain visible through, because it makes seeing 100 times easier instead of just seeing out the mouth. Is that going to be possible? I'm not sure. Probably not. Up next, I need to make the mounting hardware for this. So right now, the inside of this is hollow. There is nothing inside. So then it just rests on my shoulders. But if I let go, there's really nothing holding it in place. Now, I would like to have the ability to let it bounce around a little bit, but at the very least I need to stay somewhat contained. So what I'm going to have to do is make some kind of framework over my head. Considering this almost sits on my shoulders, I'm going to make a framework that goes from the top of my head almost on my shoulders, maybe an inch off.
and then I will glue it to the inside of the opening of this. That way when I put it on, it has that little bit of a wobble from the foam's softness. Now as far as attaching it immediately after making the framework, that's gonna be a last thing after everything else. Reason being, if I'm gonna be able to do any kind of stuff involving the eyes, I want to be able to reach in from the inside. But let's figure that's what I'm gonna do next, so let's get to it. And so begins the framework for the head mount. I started by outlining the opening of the head and using that as the base for my head mount. This will later be glued to the inside of the head. I then figured out a side profile of my face and got an idea of how it was going to fit on top of my head, leaving out a portion in the front to allow me to see. With all my pieces traced and figured out, I traced them all to 10mm foam. The base, profile, and front pieces. With those all glued together, I gave it a test fit, and it looked like the beginnings of some kind of horror film headgear, which is exactly what I wanted. But it needed some reinforcements, so I made some in-between pieces to help sturdy it up. Again, this won't get glued inside the head until after the head is done, because I will need the hand space to work on everything else inside the head. Speaking of which, the eyes were next. My plan was to use clear Warbla, a material I had never used before. For the eyes, I had an idea to make two pieces of 10mm foam, cut them to shape, glue them together, sand them smooth. This way, I have one side being a mold for the left eye, and the other side being a mold for the right eye. And with that good to go, time to start figuring out how to work with Warbla. Alright, so this is a first. What we have here is clear Warbla. I have never used Warbla before in my life, and from what I read online when I bought, or what I read online when I bought this stuff, is that the heat temp for this is a lot higher than normal Warbla. I don't know what the normal temperature is anyway for regular Warbla because I've never used it before, and this is a first. So my plan here is, right now I have them hanging up above or from my heat pipes for the radiator in my house. So they're used to getting hot, so taking a heat gun up here shouldn't cause any problems. Once they're clear, or once they're heated up, they should be straight. What I'll do is I'll take it down with some hot mitts, take it down, press it over top of it, and really press around the sides to really get that indentation of the eye. And then I'll do the same thing for the other eye, hopefully have a left and right. This plastic came in a roll. I did this first in hopes of straightening the plastic out, a little bit of heat, and gravity did the rest. Okay, that was insanely fast. I was not expecting them to straighten out that quick. They're already cool to the touch, so I mean, they are still warm. But yeah, so it says that the heat temp for this is 250, which, granted, it's a heat gun built for mostly thawing frozen pipes, so obviously it's going to get that hot. I just hadn't really noticed it. Alright, so if it's heating it up that easy and that quick, I think I'm just going to try and just put it on the table and heat it over top and just press it down. This took a little bit of playing with to get right, but this wasn't as bad to work with as I thought it would be. I just kept heating up the plastic and letting it drop naturally. I did notice that I had one corner almost stick, so there does seem to be a max temp for this before it gets too sticky. So I made sure to just heat it up evenly all around and then press things down with some oven mitts. And I did this over and over, all around the eyes, both the left and the right. Okay, so we have our eye holes here. We have our new insert. And voila. we have our eye insert. This works, I'm happy, time to move on. And from here, I finally got to start working on wrapping everything in fabric. I started with the head first, and man was this nightmare a precursor of what was to come. I used spray glue in this plush fabric. I was able to peel it back while the glue was still tacky, in case there were any mistakes, of which there were many. I did my best to make sure there were minimal wrinkles and cut lines. In the original game model though, there's really no seams at all in the fur. This is going to be completely impossible for me to achieve, so I opted for some seam lines along the sides and back center. The front of the face though has enough openings that I could use that to my advantage to keep the face one giant piece of fabric. And last but not least were the ears. I should say now that I do end up giving this all a second pass later on in the build, because one pass alone looks ugly. It's probably partially because I used EVA foam as a base for the head, but I was also dealing with a very strict deadline where I could just not take the time to pattern this fabric out properly. Plus, the polygonal nature of this build also works to my disadvantage when wrapping this, because all of those corners and sharp edges. If I had made this out of something more squishy, like cushion foam, I think the fabric would have wrapped a lot cleaner around this. Probably. Okay, so a little bit of an update on where we're at. I have wrapped at least the pink of the Robbie head, kind of. It's not super pretty. I don't like it. It's not very clean. So I'm going to contemplate maybe doing it a second layer in hopes that anywhere where there is a seam, it's going to be a seam on top of more pink. Maybe that'll work out, because getting this to be exact with minimal seams is an insanely tricky task. Also with the ears, that was a disaster. I mean, worst case scenario, it is what it is, but I did buy more than enough fabric that I can probably do this a second time over top. Plus it might just make it look better too. But for the meantime, the headsets. Up next, I'm going to start making a pattern for the arms. So here's our torso, kind of. It's all screwed up right now because it's been sitting. But yeah, so here's our top front. And then I made more or less a template for the arms and legs to be the right circumference that I want and the right length that I want. So I'm just going to make a template based off of that. I'll more or less tape this in place, wrap everything in plastic wrap, duct tape, make a duct tape template, then use that to make a sewing pattern for more or less sleeves. What I'll do is I'll just make the arm sleeve template that I'll sew and just have it come maybe somewhere in the middle, and that's it. And then I'll do another round just for the center with pink for around the neck. And then when I go to do the overalls, that'll just cover up any seams there and that'll be fine. All right, let's see how this train wreck goes. Before making my template, I used some cheap duct tape and taped my foam mock-up for the sleeve to the body. I then grabbed some plastic wrap and started wrapping everything up. Once that step was done, I then laid down a layer of duct tape on the plastic wrap for everywhere I was planning to have fabric. That all taped up, I then grabbed my marker and started drawing where I wanted my sew lines, similar to what you'd see on a t-shirt. All right, we have our arm template and all that taped up and traced out with marker. Super easy. But no, nothing's messed up. It's all still there. Just all my excess plastic wrap on the inside. I gotta clean this up now. I'll take it back to the table, do all that. Yeah, just so much plastic wrap. From here, I cut the excess free and removed all the extra plastic wrap from the inside. Once that was good, I then cut my template into pieces following the lines that I had previously drawn. Alright, so we have our template and our fabric. The way I'm going to do this is that I personally feel that running just one layer of this for the sleeves might be too thin. So I'm going to double up the layers on the sleeves. So the way I'm going to do this, instead of cutting it out 4 times each, I'm just going to fold this 4 times. Lay the template on top, mark out what I need, and then just cut it all at once. Okay. We have that. Now, when it comes to cutting, I just gotta hope that I make sure that this all stays still so I don't have any of the layers shift. But considering the nature of this fabric, it's gonna hold on to itself. So all 4 layers should stay still. 4 layers was a bit much, especially considering my cutting wheel blade really needed replaced. But I made sure to go back and forth over and over as I went to make sure that I got all 4 layers. I then flipped it over and got that inner outline for the second set. From there, I repeated that process again for the section that will be glued to the body. This is the part that will make up the shoulder and around the arms. And with that all cut out, came time to pin everything together. I did this in 2 phases, first pinning the shoulder and the arms, and then sewing them together. And then after that, I flipped it inside out, and sewed the seams along the underarm to close it all up. The end product, a full sleeve. Alright, so the sleeves turned out okay. It's hard to tell just how they're going to look in the end because of how much we have hanging here. But I'm not going to attach anything yet until the end because I still need to make the hands. As of right now, just like I had wanted, they do match. I feel like these hands might be a little big, but I'm going to be using this just to make the template for the gloves. And then once that's up and on in my hand, you can see that now it's kind of got like that bunched up look. Now as for how I'm going to do the gloves, I'm not sure yet. I might just sew like a piece of Velcro, like in the front and back, maybe. That way when I put this on, I can just Velcro it in, and then I know that when I go to move my arms around, it's gonna stay. Now I only made 1 hand because, again, this is not gonna be part of the costume. This is for the sake of making a template. I know, you're probably thinking, well, why are you making a template when you already have a template for this? Well, this template is for foam. I need to make something a little more simplified. I need a template for fabric. So that's next. To make the hands, I did the same process as I did with the arms. I wrapped everything in plastic wrap, and then gave it a layer of duct tape. And once that was fully covered, I brought out my marker and started figuring out where I wanted my sew lines to be. While the foam template did have some good spots, because the sewn hand in the end will be more round, I had to figure out a more simplified approach. With that all cut out, I began the process of transferring it all to fabric. With that all ready, then came the fun task of pinning everything together to be sewn. Keep in mind, when doing almost any kind of sewing, you're usually doing it inside out, which means I'm remembering how I cut the hand template and pinning it all backwards. And with the hands all pinned up, I sewed it all together. And before flipping the hand right side out, they needed some bulk to hold that rounded oven mitten shape that they're supposed to have. So I cut out some cushion foam and glued that to the inside to force the hands to shape. Okay, I completely forgot to record, but oh well. So I had added my little triangle piece here in the bottom. It helped a good bit, so that's great. And then I sewn in some Velcro on the inside of the sleeve. So as long as I just line them up, they should be good. This one in here. Yeah, and I guess my center line somewhat matched up with that. So in theory, once this is then permanently attached, this should twist appropriately. And then that should give me the room to move my arm up into a pretty decent state. And this gives me the extra padding, helped a little bit in terms of getting the hands to move right. So up next, Velcro's pretty good. I'll be gluing this end to the shoulders on the body. Attaching everything to the body was the same process as the head. Just a can of spray adhesive on both surfaces and then pressing them together. Alright, so I just had a mini revelation. While I can get my gloves on for one hand, I am not entirely sure how I'm going to do my second hand. I'm trying though. Okay, there we go. Alright, so I feel like I'm making like, I was gonna say I feel like I'm making like a weird mascot costume, but that's exactly what I'm doing. Oh my god. Okay, so anyway, this works pretty good actually. The arms are a little bunchy. I would honestly prefer to shorten them up some, but it gives me all the upward angle that I need. That's great. I like the mittens. Where's the head at? I don't know. Obviously, the ceiling is way too low. I'd have to get on my knees to try it, but humor me. But this is going to end up being my litmus test of whether or not this is going to actually look kind of cool. If I can figure out a way to get this in camera while I do this. Wish me luck. How is that possible? They're still touching the ceiling. It's the freaking thing so high. Rah. Alright, so from what I can see this distance, with my ears smacking off the ceiling, this looks good. I like this. So yeah, that is the motivation I need right now to make sure I get this done, because I'm liking this. I think this is going to be cool. Alright, back to work. Oh wow, I just had another realization. So check this out. Okay, I'm nerding out. Give me a minute. Okay, so I'm like, alright, so I got the Velcro for the sleeves, and I'm like, okay, let me just take everything off if I need to handle something. Or, because I only put the Velcro on the top and bottom, slide my hand out, going from the side. Oh, now I have a drink. Okay, now back in. Yep. There. I have problems. All right, back to work. Okay, so up next on the agenda are the feet. Now, the downside is that because these are based off of the in-game model from Silent Hill 3, the feet are a little squarish, which means I need to round these off. I can do this a couple ways. I can sand it, but I was dumb and made all of this out of 3mm foam. That means that if I try to sand anything, I'm just going to go right through it. So we have to have another solution, and that is using what little left I have of this stuff. So I think what I'm gonna do is just take this and just cut it right down the middle and be like, okay, splitting these two in half, and one half rounding it off as much as I can on this foot, one half as much as I can on this foot, and we'll see what happens. Mostly what I think I'll do is just round off some things. So you got like a flat top here on the top of the foot. Maybe I'll like take that curve, take a small piece and just, you know, round it that way. Just give the toes a little extra bump. In the back here, you know, maybe add just a little extra right there. I could have, and probably should have, used more for these feet, or maybe even built them up first with EVA foam, but I was already in a rush with this build, and I didn't want to waste any more time. So I just cut out pieces for the toes and heel, and spray glued them down. From here, I got to have fun trying to figure out how to wrap these feet. Wrapping the head was bad enough, but these feet were a pain. Not just because they were more complicated in shape, but because, again, all those sharp angles made it impossible to wrap the feet properly. I'm 100% serious when I say that in hindsight, I would love to go back and redo some of these parts with better materials. Because I know if I used cushion foam instead, this fabric would wrap around so much better. But that said, first pass does look kind of bad, but it does get better from here. I decided to give the feet a second pass with the fabric, and I gotta say, a second pass looked so much cleaner. Okay, so second foot looks a lot better. There's still some seams here underneath, but that's gonna be never seen, so I don't care. It looks like the trick is double wrap it. The first one, the first layer, I think it's picking up a lot of the black foam underneath. So anytime it overlaps, that color really shows through because you see more pink where there's overlap. So when I double wrapped it, it makes it look better. Not perfect, obviously, but doable. So that's good, I guess. And then I want to do the head one more time, just to do another double wrap. I'm probably gonna regret it, but I wanna clean these ears up, which you cannot see them. I wanna clean these up, make them better, get this front side as well. I gotta clean up all the overlap there just to make it a little bit smoother. I think a second layer will also help kind of hide some of these seams that you can see from the foam. I think that'll help. I bought enough of this that I can do it. I apologize to anybody who wanted to make anything pink at Walmart this whole month. All right, back to work. Okay, so I have not been recording this bit because I don't see a point in showing you me doing the same exact thing twice. Basically, when I went to redo the feet a second time, it looked a lot better. And I was like, oh, okay, so layering up the fabric makes the pink pop more, makes it more consistent, you know, so it's no longer seeing the black underneath. So aside from that, what it was also did was it made things a little more floofy, added more texture to it. So I just did that to the front now. I redid the front. I also opened the eyes up just a hair more. But I redid the front. I not redid it, but I covered it a second time. And it's probably hard to see on camera, but it makes the front look so much better. It's softer. It feels cleaner, but it's mostly just because it's just a second layer. It has, I don't know, but it looks better. I'm going to do the back, and then I'm going to cover the ears again, and then I'll move on to doing the white. And I will show that because there's no point in me showing you this twice. Before I could do any of the white fabric, I needed to get everything else first. In this case, I needed some red fabric for the mouth. I didn't have any red plush fabric, which I wish I did, but I didn't want to stall another night's worth of work by waiting for the store to open the next day. So instead, I used this leftover scrap red fabric that I think we used on our Sister of Battle cosplay. The mouth wasn't as complicated as some parts were, but I still had some wrinkles in the fabric as I went around, but I gave it a second layer to hopefully hide that, which helped a little bit. I also thought about wrapping the nose, but I knew that would have been completely impossible to do properly, and decided to just paint it later. And from there, I was ready to do the white fabric. I started with the mouth first, and removed the nose for now so it wouldn't be in the way. Wrapping this wasn't as challenging as other parts. I just draped the fabric over the mouth, and slowly whittled at the fabric until I got it to wrap to the shape that I wanted. I took advantage of Robbie's open mouth, and used that to split the fabric in the middle to help contort the fabric to shape. This made the white cheeks all one piece, with a single seam line below the chin. Once I more or less had my pattern, I then cut out 2 fresh pieces and started gluing them to the face. One layer, and then the second. One thing to note, that while I am working around the mouth like this, the mouth opening currently isn't open in the same shape as the game character yet, and it won't be until almost the very end of the build. I honestly just didn't notice it. I knew something didn't look right, but couldn't figure it out until close to the end of the build, where I then corrected it. So if you're noticing it now, just know that I do correct it later. And from there I did the ears as well. Similar process, but this was a lot easier since the front of the ears is basically just a flat surface. And with that all done, I went back to detailing the eyes. The outer flat part of the clear Warbla was going to be the black outline for Robbie's eyes. So I grabbed some 3mm foam, cut that to shape, and glued it in place. Once that was done, then I moved on to painting the eyes. Originally, I wanted to use some transparent paint, similar to what's used for visors, but after enough test fitting, I knew that I wouldn't be seeing much out of these eyes anyway, so I opted for a much cheaper and more time-efficient method, just painting with acrylic paints. I left the center of the eyes unpainted. This would allow me to see, and the rest would be painted. I figured while I couldn't use the eyes to see what was in front of me, it would still come in handy for letting me see what was above me. That way, if I needed to duck for a doorway or a low-hanging sign, I could see it coming. For painting the eyes, my process had to work in reverse, since I was painting from the inside for a smoother finish. I started with the black outline for the iris, and then started overlapping colors to match Robbie's brown-red eyes. And then once that was all done, I finished it all up with some white. Alright, so I've been lazy about recording things, so do a quick little show off before I keep working on stuff. First and foremost, I have wrapped the feet again. Now they are pretty much wrapped over the entire top underneath, and then it's just kind of whatever down here. I also forgot that Robbie has toes, or toenails, so I made little toenails too. Let's see, then I have a feeling that because of the fabric here, this is probably not going to fit, but I'll just squeeze it in. There we go. And I just have to wrap this around. I hope the contact cement inside is dry. More or less sandwiching it. I have a piece on the inside, then it wraps around to then the outside, or the inside of the head. So it's more or less just 3 pieces of 2mm foam running from here the whole way inside. So it's more or less holding them both from the inside together, because I knew there was no way I could re-glue this like I had before to the surface, which is fine, no big deal. Lets the nose move a little bit, but there we go. Nose is on and perfect-ish, kind of. It's where it's supposed to be, at least. Now we're starting to look a little bit more like Robbie. That said, the eyes are painted. Which one's which? This is the right. So, I'm gonna slap this in. I just gotta make sure that I really line it up correct with the head so that we have our eyes. Yeah, and as you see my finger here on the inside, it's gonna allow me to see at least a little bit, but I'm mostly gonna be seeing out of here. That'll at least give me a little bit of sight. But I left it clear because the inside of the helmet's gonna be dark, so it's gonna appear black in the center. But for me, I'll be able to see out of it at least a little bit. But anyway, I'm rambling now, so I'm gonna get back to work. I don't know what I'm doing yet, so you'll find out before I do. So, I got pretty far with the head, because I kind of noticed something when I did one of my very early test fits, is that when I go to put this on, obviously the bottom sinks in, like so. Now, I had made up like a mock head piece that I was going to glue inside along the bottom of it, so when I put it on, I have something for it to rest my head on, and then it wouldn't so much touch my my shoulders, which it shouldn't. But here's the problem: because this is mounted at the bottom, what that's going to do then is, while that's on my head, the whole head's going to shrink down, and that bottom is going to flex up in. So while this is staying good, everything else is going to come down. And that's going to pretty much create this here going in. So that's all just going to keep popping in, going inward, and the head's going to sink farther than what I want. So I can live with it and just deal with it. But I'm not going to bed yet anyway. And my main goal was to get the head done-ish before bed. Hence the energy, coffee. So what I'm going to do, I have some poster board, a couple more pieces in the back. I'm going to try and make some kind of extra support system that will go from the top center of the head and then rests on top of maybe this and contorts to it, so that when I'm wearing this, I'm not so much just supporting it from the bottom, also supporting it from the top. In theory, I think that will work. If not, it'll work more than just this. Because only this is going to be mounted to the helmet. So if I get that, hook it on top, and have that then extend the entire way up to the top of the head on the inside, that should do the trick, I hope. So we'll see if this works. This took a lot of back and forth to get the shape just right, because if I needed this to glue to the top center of the head, it needed to fit that shape perfectly. Also, another heads up on this, it does help a little bit, but not fully. I think this is something I can revise later, as the base of the head still does fold in a little bit. But with that all finally in, I shoved in the head support and glued that in place. Okay, so I forgot to record again. I'm going to expect me to be doing that a lot as I get closer and closer towards the end of this thing. So right now I have my piece of foam board in there that's contorted or cut to shape to the contour of the inside of the head, to the shape, angle, whatever. I got that. The headpiece for my head inside is also in. I added a couple extra pieces to really reinforce it. And then I used my spray glue, which is what I've been using for all of the fabric, inside that. And I now have everything currently clamped as you can see, so many clamps to more or less just hold it in the meantime. Normally I would have used just hot glue or contact cement, but because this pink fabric is wrapped around inside, I had this feeling that it was probably that, I don't know. So I was like, oh, I'll just do this spray glue like I was doing everything else, and just clamp it to make sure it's nice and snug. Leave these on for at least 5-10 minutes until I know for sure that that glue is dried and it's going to stay where it's at. And then once that's done, and I know this part here is now glued to the bottom of that base, then I'll push it up into the top foam board piece that is up against the top, and that'll bring it all together. I probably should have waited to do the eyes first, but oh well. I'm now gonna have to figure that out once this is done. Oops. Okay, so Robbie's head is starting to look really good. Still has a few more things to do before I do the final touches, which is like putting in the eyes and stuff. But I have 2 days left, so I need to start moving on. And I'll set this for tomorrow, which I'll explain in a second. So as the build gets closer and closer towards the end, I get very, very schedule centric. I start making a list of everything that's left to do and what days I have off to do it, and I start organizing. I was supposed to get the head finished and done yesterday. Technically I had off of work. I was sick. I got really close. The eyes need to be put in, the mesh behind the mouth and stuff like that. I got the mounting on the inside of the head done, but unfortunately I ran into a couple of issues, mostly fitment. It's not stable. It wants to fall and lean in certain ways, so I need to put straps in and put in some cushioning for comfort. I'll do that tomorrow. Today, on my schedule, is the thing that I have been dreading the entire time. So, I have my upper body. I have worn this several times, and I've come to the realization that I am always going to need help when it comes to putting this thing on. But I'll put a zipper down the back. And then I have a piece of Velcro on the inside at the very, very top, just to give it like some extra security. That way nothing ever really pulls on the zipper. Maybe too much Velcro. Jeez. So I had used some of the screen foam to make a template for my legs. I can't get back far enough to explain it, but in the body piece here, at the knee, I have cut out a section. And this top piece here fits into that section, and then the leg hole pretty much goes down to my ankles. So that's how I'm going to be doing this. And as far as fabric goes, I will be using another plush fabric. I bought a crap ton at Joann's. Yeah, so let the fun begin. Before I could start with my overalls template, just like with my sleeves, I needed to attach my fake pant leg first. I just taped it on and made sure it was secure. I only needed the one leg because I'll be flipping the template in half later anyway to make sure that it's symmetrical. And obviously Sable had to supervise. And from here, I did not do a duct tape template this time because that would have been a lot of plastic wrap and a lot of duct tape. Instead, I draped my fabric over top and started outlining. I did make sure that the center fold was as centered as possible before drawing my outlines, of course. And after drawing that out, I took it back to the table, cut it out, evened my sides, and threw it back in the body to see how it fit. It looked alright, so I moved on to the legs and did the same exact thing. Alright, well, this went a lot better and faster than I was expecting. I honestly thought that the front and back were going to be different, both the body and the legs. Surprisingly, they're the same, which is good. The only major difference with the back is obviously, like I said before, there's gonna be straps that go up over the top, and I'm more or less gonna make them as long as possible so that when I sew everything together, I'll sew them last. That way I can get the proper wraparound. Other than that, I'm just gonna take my 2 template pieces for the body and the leg, transfer them to my other pieces, and start sewing. It's going a lot faster. I did not jinx that. Better not have jinxed that. We'll see. On to sewing. Okay, so this step is probably a little bit excessive, but I'm doing it anyway. I have my 2 layers that I'm doing. I've pinned them all together, as you can see, and I'm going to sew them together. Reason I'm doing this is mostly just to make it easier to sew everything else later. That way these are 1 piece instead of 2. But also so that they have something to kind of cling to themselves, so that they stay in shape. I have this feeling that if I don't do that, there might be a tendency for things to slip, especially during the sewing process for everything. So this, I have the time to do it this way, so I'm doing this first with all the pieces before I sew all the pieces together. Probably not important, but I'm doing it anyway because it's my project. I'm doing what I want. Because the front and back are such large pieces, I decided to pin the 2 layers together before sewing to reduce any risk of sewing the wrong things. I'm sure this step isn't 100% necessary, but it makes me feel better, so I'm doing it. With that all done, I went through and removed all the pins, and then moved on to the legs. Well, I should be sewing now, but apparently I can't do math. And I thought I had all the legs done. I had 2 pieces done, not 4. 2 for either the front or back, but not the other. So I checked my fabric. Like, that's okay. I should have enough to do 2 more, which would be 4 more, really, of which I did not have enough to do any, actually, to do none. I had none left to do a single piece. It is currently midnight, and Joann's does not open until 9. So I have, it's like I could try and find something to do and kill time until then, but that then pushes back the overalls a whole day, and I can't do that because I only have 1 day left tomorrow. That's my last day I can do anything, and I cannot delay that. So, God, this thing is like junk. Matter just does not like this material. So what I decided to do was one of 2 things. I will decide it once I get both of these separated. I'll either just do 1 layer, front and back for the legs, or I'll find another color that I do have in the storeroom in the back. I have another color that's like a tan. It's probably closer in color to the table over here. If I just layer that in the inside, I don't think it'll be seen. That said, this is taking forever to spread apart. Oh, I'm also almost out of black thread. It is halfway down the spool, and then I'll be out of that as well. I'll figure that out when the time for that comes too. I'll check all my bins, make sure I have something, which I probably don't. Walmart doesn't open till 6. This is probably going to take me an hour. And with everything cut and pinned together, Sable demanded attention. And once Sable's needs have been met, I was allowed to get back to work, sewing the legs. Well, 2 hours later, and the legs are all done, and I have totally lost my mind. The inside will never be seen, but it gives the fabric the extra thickness that I want. So that's good. So up next, I'm going to start pinning everything together. The way I'm going to do this, I'm going to pin the front all in one and then the back all in one, because there's some things that are going to have to get folded and all that stuff. Yeah, okay. Now for the fun part. Actually, this was the fun part. Yay! Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was terrible. But okay, now on to the next part. And so begins the process of pinning the legs to the body to be sewn. Just like the sleeves, this is being done inside out. And with those legs pinned on, over to the sewing table we go to sew them on. Alright, so the front half is all sewn together, the front half. Now for the back. One thing to note is that I have not separated the back yet in the center for the zipper or anything else, which would be here. Only reason I'm not doing that yet is because there's more than just the zipper. There's also the hole in the butt as well for the tail. But yeah, because of all of that and how complex it all is going to be, I figure I'll sew this, and then once that's done, I'll sew it to the front, and then I'll just put it on the body, pin it all up to make sure everything's where it needs to be, and then mark, cut all the stuff I need to for the back, and then start gluing. But sewing this is going to be a nightmare, so let's get to it. With the front half done, onto the back half. And with both sides done, still doing this all inside out, I pin the sides and the crotch together. And finally, I sewed the whole thing together. With that all sewn, so began the multi-test fitting and multi-sewing adjustment process to dial in the shape and size of the overalls. Okay, here we are. I am currently turning the suit inside out. So I had tested everything on, and as I had thought, everything was very big. I was expecting that, obviously, because I kind of gave everything a couple extra inches, about 2 extra inches on both sides because of how big it was. I wanted to make sure, because I've made mistakes before where I made things too tight and then I had to add extra bits, like with the arms. So I figured this time around, just add extra and then turn it inside out and sew it smaller if needed. I've already tested it on once, but that was this morning before I went to bed. One thing I have noticed is that this is going to be a very, very hot costume. It's my fault for doubling everything up. Alright, so we're going to just, more or less, just going to go through and pin the sides down tight. I'll do as far as my hands can reach, and then I'll just follow that line with everything else. And then for the legs, my thought process on the legs to get them right is that, according to game, the legs fit snugly around this. So more or less the pant leg should be about yay wide. So after I pin all of everything on the side, I'm going to pin the pant legs around this and then just find a line from where I stopped pinning here to there and just straighten it out. Instead of pinning, since the overalls were still inside out, I just grabbed a marker, pinched the fabric, and drew a line to mark where I needed it sewn. The crotch area seems fine, so I'm for now just going to focus on the outer edges. I need a bigger craft table. If only I was rich like all the people on the YouTubes who have ginormous craft houses. They just have an entire studio dedicated to their crafting. And you know, those people do not have that stuff in their house. That is a full studio. They have way too much money. Okay, we'll do it this way. I'll do 2 inches. And then here, we're still at about 2 inches. So we're going to do the same here, which is about where I have it traced. Up at the top, what do we have? About 1.5 inches. And that looks about right over here. And then we'll just connect the lines. Well, that's all I needed. Move this up. Now to get the shoes. Sable has claimed the pile of scrap fabric for her own. Hi, Sable. She's giving me the stare, like, don't bother me, this is mine. So I'm just gonna go in by the inside here. I don't want to go too crazy, but it looks like maybe 2 inches again might be enough. Looks like we're doing 2 inches on everything. And considering I gave everything like an extra 1 to 2 inches, it makes sense. I'm just taking it back to where I had it. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. Holy crap. All right. Now I'll probably just use some movie magic and just magically have it sewn. It's looking better. It's looking a lot better-ish. I can still move. That's great. I feel like I'm like making something for a Willy Wonka adventure right now. Okay, so without the head and all the other stuff, I am loving this. I feel like the hands might still be a bit big. I can sew them in. I'm loving this. Oh my god. I feel like a freaking cartoon character. This is amazing. Yeah. This is cool. Okay. Alright, on to the next step. Okay, so I have this green fabric here. It's very stretchy and it's also the exact color that I need. I just did it to do the base trim of his pants. It looks almost like his pants are like rolled up, and it's green, so this is what I used for that. That said, I also was looking at some color matching, and the trim for his suspenders in the top part is also green. I thought it was yellow until I really zoomed in. So that means I might end up using this for that. If I do, I'll have to wrap it in something else though, because this is too thin. That said though, if I'm gonna do that, I originally got this green to do this tie. So I need to do that first, which is great because I have a killer headache right now. And what way to make my headache better than to use aerosol products indoors? Oh, either I'm gonna get high or I'm gonna have a worse headache. One day to go. I rushed this part as fast as I could while still trying to make it look half decent. I just sprayed the tie and fabric with a crap ton of glue and pressed it all on. I did this in multiple passes, and then again once more, for the center knot. I also think I forgot to mention it, but the overall straps were too thin. So before I could do trim for them, I needed to make new ones. I cut off the old and used them as a base for my new pieces. And with those all cut out, I then used the new ones as a base for my lighter fabric, which will be the internal structure for the green trim. I will say, I'm glad my cutting board was already at the end of its life before this project, because the amount of spray glue that got on this thing by the time I was done, there was no returning from that mess. I laid the green down on top of the tan fabric without removing the inside piece. That way the trim held its shape, and so I had enough room to wrap the green fabric around the trim at all points. I probably could have just gotten away with making it one straight piece, but I do everything weird, so here we are. And of course I had to pin it to be sewn, and all this glue did not do my sewing machine any favors either. Yay. Alright, everything is now pinned, all the trim, well except for the actual overall pieces, they're already sewn. That's a piece of dust, not a pin. But yeah, now I get to do the fun of finishing the rest of the trim. I am behind schedule. I wanted to get this done by midnight. It is now midnight. I wanted to have this on the suit by midnight. This took forever. So let's go finish this part up. And we all know what a sewing machine does. We saw this thing already. Oh, so earlier I said that I ran out of black thread. This is still that same night. I found some blue thread and I almost ran out of that too. Isn't Con Crunch fun? Okay, so I already started putting the overalls on top of this. I've already spray painted or spray glued this part here. Up next is to do the back, but to be able to do that myself, I think I need to take this off and put it on backwards. So that's going to be interesting. I'm honestly not sure how I'm going to get in or out of this, but we will try. Okay. So they're getting this to all line up with the. I don't know. Now I know, at least know how far I want it up. That'll make it a lot easier on me. Oh god, this thing is designed to be taking off the other way. Oh my god. Just don't break it. You do not have time to fix it. Alright, first part to get glued. I might have to actually use pins. I can already tell this is going to get very messy. What? What? Hi? What? Oh my god. What? What do you want? I have a very needy cat. I will be right back. Alright, so I forgot to record some things, but we got our little floofy butt tail in, and I put in these little buttons covered in felt. I should have recorded them, but oh well. To show you how I did the tail, at least, I will show you with the bow tie. So I cut out a hole in the back, and I have two strips covered in contact cement. Then in the chest, I have a hole marked exactly where I want the center of this to be. So what I'm going to do, take this. I have contact cement both inside of the bow tie and on the inside of the chest. But there we go. Now I have this on the inside. That's going to go into the chest and then spread out like so. I'm just going to make sure I get it the way I want. That looks better. Slide that in. I'm not going to make it super tight. That way it has a little bit of bounce. and there we have it. A bouncy bow tie. And before I did any final touches, like putting in the eyes or the blood stains, I took it all upstairs into the kitchen and tried it all on. It actually looked really good. Alright, so that test fit went really good. Up next, I'm putting in the eyeballs. If Sable lets me. Sable, stop trying to get inside of the rabbit head. Alright, so now I have to hopefully land the angle of the eye perfect. Can only hope. Alright, there's one eye. Now I got to do the rest from the mouth somehow. Oh, this is going to be even trickier. Hopefully I can get my hand all the way up in here. Yeah, I can. Okay, we're good. We're good. Alright. Now he's looking a little more like Robbie. Getting there. The eyes are... they're eyes. They're a hair uneven, but whatever. I don't care at this point. Okay, so the trim around the eyes doesn't seem that bad. I have not decided yet if I'm going to do anything with that. I could get some felt or some... I did buy some anyway, and really help sell the upper eyelid. For shits and giggles, I will make a template out of paper for that. If it looks good when I slap it on, then we'll do that. We'll see what happens. This was super easy. I just traced the outlines around the eyes and then freehanded it to make it a little cleaner. The main reason I wanted to do this was because there was a slight unevenness around the eye outlines from left to right, and making a template for them would help even that out. After transferring that to felt, I then cut them out, gave them a spray of glue, and then pressed them onto the face. I will say, in hindsight, I do think the eyes are still just a hair small, but not by much. Maybe like a 1/4 inch in height. It's very minimal, but it's way too late to do anything about it now. I then finished the face off with the eyebrows. Again, everything from the eye size, the eye outlines, the eyebrow placements, it's all an artistic guess. I'm sure there's a way I could have done actual measurements to make it 100% correct, but oh well, close enough. So up next, what I'm doing, I am weathering. I had this over a different table because we got other stuff over there. I've already started it, but what I've done is I've just watered down a crap ton of paint, and I'm more or less going to be doing multiple passes. As you can already see, I'm already starting it here in the corners of the eyes. There's a little bit of a gray. It's drying kind of hard and tacky, which I kind of like. What I want is the impression that this has been through some weather and has been sitting outside a lot and is very moldy and dirty. So that's what I'm going to go for. I'm probably going to do like 1 or 2 passes with this, trying to hit in like anywhere where that dirt would sit. I'm also using the game model as reference on my monitor over here. Yeah. But yeah, I'm going to be doing that to the pink, the white, with this gray, and then I have some other colors I have to do for everything else over on the body. But I have one night to do this. So let's cross our fingers. I started with the gray, hitting up corners and outlines to help create a contrast around certain parts. I did my best to mimic my reference images as possible as well. One thing I learned pretty quick, especially once I started laying it down on the white, is that this has a tendency to spread really far across the fabric. This was okay, I guess, which the in-game model does kind of have a similar effect, but to be honest, I don't really like it because it's outside of my control. And while it does look okay in some spots, I prefer to have that final say as to where it was and wasn't. But oh well, live and learn. Up next was the trim. This wasn't too bad. I didn't try to get too fancy here, just got what I could. I then moved on to the tie with the green, just getting the most exposed spots that I could. I didn't care about the backside or getting any corners or folds. And last but not least, the bloodstains. I used my reference images and tried to mimic the pattern as best I could. For starters though, that was impossible. The bloodstains on the in-game character are large. Way too large for normal bloodstains or any kind of splatter that would actually spray. So instead, I tried to mimic where the concentration was. And again, that bleeding effect that I mentioned earlier came back here too. Fortunately, this kind of is in the in-game model, but I wish I could have replicated it better. I'm sure the multi-layers of plush fabric probably wasn't helping me here, and if I had more time, I would have been more meticulous with my drops. But this all only had like 12 hours to dry before the convention, so time was kind of important. Also, it's hard to tell because I didn't record both, but left off screen is the body piece, and as I'm doing the face, I'm also doing the chest. That way for each bit of saturation and paint, I'm just doing both at the same time, starting out watered down, working my way towards thicker and thicker paint. After that, I let it sit for the rest of the night. And after we got up, thankfully the paint had dried, and I gave it one last test fit before loading up the car. It looked good, and another last minute build was complete. And the only thing left to do now is to show it off. What's that? What is going on? This again? I'm back in Silent Hill 3? Wait, what's this for? Oh no, no. I'm not in Silent Hill 3. I'm in Silent Hill Arcade. Oh. This has to be the dumbest skit I've ever done. Wait. This is my skit. I can do whatever I want. Come get some.
Double kill, triple kill, multi-kill, killing spree, monster kill. Holy shit.
See you in the next one.